Hi, Kathy. I'm so excited you decided to join us today from the Unhustle podcast. And
Oh,
just for the audience, I want to say a few words about you. I'm so excited to talk with you more and get into this topic so relevant right now. So, Kathi Lipp is the best-selling author of Clutter Free, a very, very dear topic to myself. You're well known for helping people discover peace in every possible area of their lives, including their out of control homes. And you have a very popular podcast called the Clutter Free Academy. And you just known as a influencer and a voice for living clutter free with simplicity. You've been featured on so many publications. I'll just mention a few here, like Focus on the Family, Mops International, Crosswalk.com, Girlfriends in God. So some of the topics I definitely want to talk with you today about are obviously clutter and simplicity, and so timely right now. So welcome to the
yeah.
podcast, Kathi.
Oh, Milena, thank you so much for having me on. It's thrilled to be here.
Why don't we kick it off with why simplicity is so important?
Yeah, so I actually grew up the daughter of a hoarder. And so I never really learned how to get rid of the stuff. My dad was a collector of everything. And, it wasn't put up in nice shelves or anything like that. It was kind of chaos. And so what I realized, I always said, oh, I'm much more creative when I'm messy. Which is true to a point. My process is pretty messy. However, what I realized was the messy was keeping me from being creative. When you have to spend 2 hours to clean up to do 15 minutes of creativity, that's not working for you. So I got to a point where I realized a lot of the things I wanted to do in my life, have people over, work on book projects, a lot of that was being interrupted by the mess in my life. And so as soon as I started to deal with the mess, some of those things started to grow. And that was so wonderful when I really discovered that paradigm shift.
So important. I mean, I couldn't agree more. So I understand you have almost like you've narrowed it down to a process, and it was probably the same process you took when you went to declutter your house. So why
Mhm.
don't you take us through that four-step process?
Yeah. So what I did was I really decided I would go in and I would declutter a room, but I'm like, well, sometimes I do projects in here, so I should leave that. And it was just it was very messy. And so what I decided to do was I really thought about each room, and I asked friends who were had clean and clutter free houses and who were interior designers, and they said you really have to uh, decide what really dedicate your space. So it's very interesting right now. We live part time with my mom, part time up in the mountains. And so we're actually in her master bedroom right now. She doesn't use it, so we use it. So we have even little spaces within the master bedroom. So, like right now, I'm in the office space. So we've dedicated this. This is for podcasting and videos and writing and that kind of stuff. But also, other parts of the room are for sleeping and hanging out with my husband and things like that. So really just dedicating the space and then deciding how you want that space to look, feel, smell. How do you want that space to be? And so instead of just putting a bunch of random stuff together, really go in with a theme and an idea. Do I want this room to be cozy and comfortable, or do I want it to be dynamic and fun? So you decide, then you declutter, because once you figure out what the purpose of your room is, you can get out the stuff that is no longer usable, no longer focused on that purpose. And then finally I say, do your thing. So once you've got it like 60% decluttered, mostly decluttered, and you have an idea of really what the purpose of the room is, that's when you can go in and buy the candle or move the furniture, or really make it your own space and give it your own touches. And that's how you create a home that is uniquely yours.
So if I want to declutter my house, I mean, it feels really overwhelming. You know, it's a
Mm-hmm.
big project, and I know a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands right now. So
Mm.
what you can educate people is very timely. So let's say right now, in this moment, in these difficult, challenging times,
Right.
when we're trying to survive and figure things out, and you know, there's a lot of stress and overwhelm and fear in our lives. How would you advise someone to approach decluttering their home?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't want you to think of it as a big project. I want you to think of it as, 100, maybe 1,000 tiny projects, because you can do a tiny project. And I think about it in 15-minute increments. So for 15 minutes, I'm going to give you two tools that I think are super helpful: time boxing and space boxing. So I don't think anybody should ever say, I'm going to spend Saturday decluttering my garage. That is the most depressing sentence I've ever heard in my entire life. But what I would rather you do is say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes decluttering this half of my desk, or I'm going to spend 15 minutes decluttering that one shelf in the garage. Because what you can do is you can get this sense of you've accomplished something. And if you decide after that 15 minutes, you know what, that was easier than I thought, and I have another 15 minutes, I'm going to go do this other shelf, that's great. But the time box, the 15 minutes, helps you get just a ton done. And we get that adrenaline rush when we know there's a beginning and an end. And that adrenaline rush helps us make decisions. And that's what I want for you. And then the space boxing says, I'm only going to work on this one little section. And when I'm done at the end of 15 minutes, I will have taken out what I don't need anymore. I can either, it's either garbage, recycling, or I give it away, depending on what the item is. Or I take it to another room where it's supposed to be, or I put it back in the same room in the place where it's supposed to be. But you don't have a lot of little things kind of hanging out there, little unfinished putaways. You just concentrate on that one space. And again, if you've got this adrenaline going and you want to make more decisions, great. But if you just do 15 minutes a day, I always think about it. I love this quote. The years are long, but the days are long, but the years are short. And you can accomplish so much more than you think you can in 15 minutes. So try it and be surprised at how much you can get accomplished.
If you spend 15 minutes a day, realistically speaking, on an average house, how long will it take to go through the whole house?
I think if you're saying an average house, I would say for most of us, in 6 months to a year, your house would be decluttered. Now, let me also say this though, that you're going to see results right away, because I want you to start working on those top surfaces. I want you to work on the top of your dresser, not the bottom drawer. I want you to get to a place where you walk into a room and there's already peace, because the UCLA study that they did on clutter and stress shows that, especially for women, clutter changes our cortisone levels. So it produces stress in us. But if you walk into a room that's decluttered, your stress level is going to go down and you're going to have those immediate results. And by the way, decluttering is addictive. So I bet you're going to do more than 15 minutes in a day. You're going to do your 15 minutes, but then while you're waiting on hold, you're going to clear off your desk, or you're going to clear off your dresser or something like that, instead of just sitting on hold.
And I'm the one that, and you and I haven't met before, but
Oh.
the listeners on this podcast know that I actually talk about declutter and simplicity quite a bit. And I always use myself as an example because it's the only thing that I really know what worked for me. And what worked for me was to go to my closet, my wardrobe first,
Yeah.
because it's the one thing that you go to every single morning. And when you
Right.
have that feeling of calm and ease and simplicity and putting on clothes that feel good, and you're not going through I have so many clothes and nothing to wear
Right.
panic. You're absolutely right. It definitely addictive. Now, it took me probably I'm going to say about a couple of years to go to every
Okay.
single room and the
Mhm.
garage and do the garage sales and get rid of a lot of stuff. We got rid of
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. We eliminated a lot. Now, I'm not one to live with, 25 things in my life.
Right.
But I definitely, especially down here in Baja, Mexico, where I am right now, we definitely live a very simple
Mhm.
lifestyle. So I'm just wondering, how many things do you have in your house?
Oh, well, okay. I have a lot in my house. I am not a minimalist by any stretch of the imagination. And you can look behind me, but though like that, uh, well, and for the listeners, I have a bookshelf that has some vases on it. I love
They're
red and turquoise too.
beautiful. They're
Thank you.
beautiful.
Very, very fun. I'm actually, but I don't live at my house right now. We have a house in the mountains that I work very hard to keep clutter free, but it's not stuff free because we hold retreats up in this mountain house. And so we need things like writing trays and books and blankets and pillows that are snuggly. So I have no idea how many things we have, but I do know this. I want to make sure that everything I own is either something I love, so it's on display and it makes me happy when I see it, I use, or I would buy again. And
Right.
those are the criteria that I use to stay, so that I don't get overrun with stuff, because it's very easy to ignore the things. Now, when you say that it probably took you 2 years, what I'm guessing is, my friend, you did a deep declutter.
Yeah.
Like you did a life-changing declutter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
most people are not on your or my level. They're
Right.
still going to have stuff around. So I think you can get to a place where your home feels decluttered, where it changes the feeling of your house. One, I think it starts, you start with a nightstand and you wake up in the morning, you're like, it's still decluttered. That's amazing. But I think you will you can significantly change a house in 6 to 12 months.
Nice. And that seems very, very realistic. Now, what
Mhm.
about the people and the moms with little kids? Because that's really
Right.
tough.
It's a whole different thing. I totally get that. But I will say this. I think it's even more important to ask those three questions. What do my kids love? What do they use? What would you buy again for them? And if you can't answer a strong yes to that item, it's time to get it out of your house. It's even more important with kids because they go through stuff much more quickly than we do. Their
Right.
toys, their clothes, their books, they're constantly changing. And I think what we end up doing is, because they liked it at 3, we're still holding on to it at 5. Now, if you don't have littler kids, that's probably not what you need to do. And I like to think about my possessions this way, that maybe I was just supposed to have that item for a season in my life. You know, I went through a pizza making phase. Well, if I haven't made a homemade pizza in 2 years, maybe there's somebody else out there who would love to have, these kind of expensive tools I bought in order to do that. So thinking about your kid stuff like that as well. This is a phase that they went through. Now, who in your life would it be a huge bonus to them to get those clothes, to get those toys, to get, whatever it is? We have this misconception in our brain: the longer I hold on to something, the more money and value I've gotten out of it. And it's
Mm.
just not true.
Well, to me, it ends up in actually taking up space in your life, so you don't
Uh,
have space for other things that you want to do, which adds more stress. And then it
yeah.
takes up time, and none of us have time. So
Yeah.
when you add these two together, it's a no-brainer for me. But
Hmm.
somehow we accumulate all this stuff really quickly. So do you have any rules that people can follow, or guidelines, or any kind of practical tips for A, how not to accumulate more stuff,
Right.
and B, um, how to practically remove the emotional attachment from stuff?
Yeah. So let me do them backwards. How
Okay.
to remove the emotional attachment. I understand when I'm not using something or I don't love something and I'm hanging on to it, it's probably one of 3 emotions. So it's probably fear, and fear manifests itself in the thought, I might need that someday.
Hmm.
So I don't get rid of the Scooby-Doo Band-Aids because what if I need them someday? Even though I haven't used them in 10 years. So I might need it someday. I might decide that I'm going to take up scrapbooking again. I'm not going to take up scrapbooking, but I have to hold on to these things. Guilt, so and so gave it to me. So my mom gave it to me, my aunt gave it to me, my grandmother gave it to me. So why am I, and in our brains, we have this agreement that if somebody gave me a gift, I have to hold on to it until both of us are dead, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Our possessions are meant to be used for a season in our life. And then finally is shame. And that shame manifests itself, but I spent so much money on it. So I'm going to keep the shoes that hurt my feet because I spent so much money on it and I would feel bad giving them away. And so one of the stories I like to remind myself, it's my story, but anybody can borrow this story and understand why giving away things can be so powerful. When I became a single mom, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, and I had two junior high kids, and my son desperately needed some new shoes. He was a size 12 men's shoe in junior high. And so we ended up
Wow.
going to Goodwill. Yeah, those are some big feet. He's now 6'2". Um, so we went to Goodwill and he's looking at the shoes, and these are not kids' shoes. These are not, they're old man shoes. And he's like, Mom, there's nothing here in my size. And then he looks at the size 8.5s. He goes, I want shoes like that. And it was a brand new pair of Nikes. And I'm like, dude, you couldn't fit into those a year ago. They're too small. And so, but I looked at them because I'm like, how much is a brand new pair of Nikes going for at the Goodwill? Well, it turns out they were size 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I think about, okay, that's a miracle. But then I think about the guy, or maybe it was his wife or his girlfriend, or who knows who it was, who says, you've never worn these. Let's donate them. And, by you donating something, you can be literally an answer to prayer for somebody else. So to think through it like that, it makes it so much easier to give that stuff away. Now, about bringing things in. So the first thing I always want to tell people is do an inventory. What do you already have? Before you ever go clothes shopping, before you go book shopping, before you go food shopping, look at the inventory of what you already have and then say, okay, what do I actually need? Maybe I don't need, not many of us are buying an Easter outfit this year, but let's use that as an example, okay? So maybe you have a great shirt that you totally forgot about. You just need, a great pair of pants or something like that, or a cool jacket to go with it. You don't need a whole new outfit. Maybe you just need one piece, or maybe you just need shoes because you have a dress that you wore to your cousin's wedding or something like that. But until you go and inventory what you have, it's so easy to forget what you actually own. So do the inventory, see what you already have, and start to get creative about shopping your own closet. And then you're not bringing so much stuff into your home.
So important. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
true. I go shopping in my own closet all the time. I
Yeah.
actually made it a rule at some point before I go clothes shopping to first go to my wardrobe, because you do forget what you have, and then you end up buying the exact same thing that you already have two of, and you don't need it just because
Right.
you already have it.
Well, and to
Yeah.
challenge yourself, I can totally see you doing this. Challenge yourself. How many outfits can I make out of what I already have? How can I mix things up that I already own to make it be something new and fabulous? And maybe it's just putting a new necklace with something. Maybe it's, trying a different shirt under that jacket than you've ever worn before. Uh, and to follow people on Pinterest whose style you admire, but to see what can I do out of my own closet.
I took it a step further. In my previous career, before I started Unhustle, I was a digital marketing consultant. I had a big marketing agency with with people working for me. We had some phenomenal clients, and dressing up was important to me because I had to to, look the part, and I had to
Right.
go out to meetings. I ended up, and I had the money, and I had a bit of an online shopping addiction
Yeah,
after
yeah.
working so many hours, on the
Right.
screen. You go online shopping, and especially living in Tahoe, you can't go shopping that
There's
easily.
no place to go shopping.
So I took it a step further, and I actually worked with an image consultant
Mm-hmm.
who came to my house, and we opened up the wardrobe and took all the clothes out, and we went through every single piece,
Right.
because she matched the clothes I had to my style, to my personality, to who I
Yes.
am as a person. And when she wanted to get rid of all my business suit, I almost freaked out. I was going, what if I need it? And she's like, what, are you
Right.
working with the banking sector? Are you working in the finance industry? Are you, you don't need suits. You're in marketing. You're a creative person. I mean, you need to be who
Right.
you are and connect with people from that point of view. So it was a really, really interesting exercise. And fast forward a few years, I live in Baja California Sur, and I lived in an Airstream for 4 months out of the year.
Oh,
And
wow.
I realized how little and how creative you can get with your clothes, so you can still look good and feel good and be yourself. So yeah, I've seen both sides of the spectrum. So that's why I'm so
Yeah.
interested in talking with you.
Yeah. And so, and one of my friends, her name is Kim Nallen, is a stylist. And here's what I've seen from Kim is that she will not give you a long list of things you need to go purchase. What she will do, she will look at what you have and say, you know what? You having a jean jacket like this will go work with this, this, and this. So let's find you a jean jacket that you feel fabulous in a cream color, and do that. And, if you had a burgundy top, just a t-shirt, you could wear it under that. That's what a good stylist will do. They have a vision for your whole wardrobe. They're not just taking you out shopping and buying new things head to toe. They know what you already look good in, what you already love, and how to make it work.
Yeah, I didn't go shopping at all. I just got rid
Yeah.
of clothes and bags of clothes,
Yeah.
and just minimized and left the pieces that I really loved and that were me, and I just looked great in them, and mix and match, and just accessories. And she did not encourage me to go shopping.
I love it.
I already had so much. It was a question of minimizing, so that when you open that wardrobe in the morning, you're not spending 15 minutes going, I have so many clothes and nothing to wear, but you
Right.
just grab the things that jump out, and you go with your day, which is where I think this decluttering but benefits lane. It's, the opening up of the time and the space and the freedom to do the things that matter, right? Is that how you
Well,
notice things?
I love what you just said there, because I think really, especially after being in self quarantine and sheltering in place and all of that, one of the things that is going to shift in our society is that we are going to value space more than stuff. And I feel the shift coming with people trying to get rid of so much stuff. Now, I also believe a lot of people are going to be at those thrift stores the day that the quarantine is lifted and trying to grab all the deals and stuff. But I think for those of us who want to have peace in our homes, we're going to want to open up our space. And so to be able to do that and value that space over just have it, and I think options are they fool us, because when we have too many options we get overwhelmed and we just go to the same clothes every single day. But when you have a capsule wardrobe, kind of what you were talking about, like when it was limited to your Airstream, you only had so many choices and you had to figure out how to make those work. And it's easy to get bored, but boredom is the instigator of creativity. Like if I'm bored, I'm going to figure out a new way. I'm going to find a scarf. I'm going to wear it 6 days to Sunday, and I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to try things that I've never tried before. So if you have a lack of time, a lack of energy, a lack of money, and a lack of space, it forces you to be creative in ways you've never been before.
I love you. This is exactly the simplicity aspect of Unhustle. It is
Mhm.
decluttering. It is simplifying your life. And I love how you put space over stuff, because that's exactly, I believe it's going to be a huge mental shift with
Right.
what's going on. So everything you're preaching and I'm preaching, I think it's becoming quite a bit more relevant.
Right. Well, because it's just about, it's where your soul is at. And if your soul is wrapped up in a lot of material things, it shows. And so what do I need to get rid of to really rediscover what my purpose is, who I'm serving, who I'm loving on during this time?
Absolutely, so important. Kathi, tell me a little bit more about the book, and what are some of the most important messages in your book?
Yeah, so we talked about the 4 Ds, the dedicate, decide, declutter, and do your thing. I would also say that really having a vision for how you want your home to feel. Like when you go into the first room of your house, does that bring you a sense of peace? Does it bring you a sense of joy? How do you want to feel when you walk in there? If you feel overwhelmed, then that's the first place to take care of. So a lot of people, when I ask them, what room do you want to start with? I thought it'd be their bedroom or maybe their kitchen. It was actually the place that people see first. And I thought that was really interesting. So understanding that has been really, really huge. We also, if this decluttering thing is overwhelming for you, one of the things that we do have is we have a Facebook group that goes through the book pretty regularly. It's just called Clutter Free Academy. We have about 10,000 women and a few brave men in there who are just trying to declutter their lives every single day. So that's where we live out the principles of the book. But everything you and I have been talking about, and I love that, this is also where you sit in all of this, is that society has given us the lie that the more stuff we have, the happier we will be. And we all know that that's a lie, but we don't internalize it often. And so when you start to reclaim that space and you start to reclaim some of that money, let's talk about that too. The money that we have spent on organizing systems or buying things because we don't know we already have them, or just, for you, it was an online shopping addiction when you were working so many hours. For a lot of people, it's the dollar store. It's something smaller and simpler, but it is an addiction all the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so understanding that deeply is a huge gift to say, where am I going to put my money? And, we couldn't have, like, 5 year, even, well, no, I'd say 10 years ago, so much of my money was going to stuff. And now, let me tell you the gift we have. When we find out that the New York City Chef's Brigade is feeding firefighters and medical workers and things like that, and we see that story on the news, I can send money to them now where I couldn't do that before. And we haven't done, we've been very strategic, tried to be, about where we're doing that. But that wouldn't have even been an option 10 years ago for me, even though I was probably making more money than I am
Right.
now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And how much more, how fulfilling that is to be able to do something like this, and how much more happiness you get out of being able to help somebody else out.
Well, and I think we go with the lie. Well, I can buy this, and if I don't like it, I'll just give it away. But the most powerful tool we have right now to help really is money. And so I'd rather be giving money where organizations who are smarter than me can use that strategically than somebody wearing my shirt.
Right.
It's great to give those things away, and we can be a blessing. When I was a single mom, that was a huge blessing. But now, how can we use our space better? Can we, after all of this is done, can we continue to work from home because we've cleared out a space? Can we use our money in a different way? Can we use our time in a different way? Those are the things I want to think about.
So you mentioned you started on this journey. What did you mention, about 10 years ago or 5
10
years ago?
years ago is when the big shift happened for me.
What caused that shift?
Oh, okay. So my husband and I got married about 15 years ago, and we had everybody living in the same house. There were 6 of us, and we were living in 1,400 square feet.
Wow.
And I would say it was probably a little more than 10 years ago that I was like, we were we were looking for a bigger house, but we lived in Silicon Valley. And if you know, because you lived in Tahoe, housing prices in Silicon Valley are insane. And
Hmm.
so we had to make those 1,400 square feet work. So, at first we got rid of a bunch of stuff, but I really didn't think about it as decluttering. It's just like, okay, we can't have all this stuff. That's just what we can't do. And then I would say about 10 years ago is when we got really intentional about, okay, if we want to live here and we want to up the peace level in our house, we have to get rid of some of this.
Hmm. And any regrets?
Not, I will say this. When I went through my divorce, which was much longer ago, I had to, we moved in with my parents. My kids and I moved in with my parents, and I gave everything away. Then I started to regather it, but that's another story. But I gave almost everything away, and we moved in with my parents. And there was exactly one item I regretted giving away when I married Roger. It was so silly. It was a little basket that you put forks, knives, and spoons and napkins in. And it was so funny. Right after Roger and I got married, one of my bridesmaids waited around to move to Arkansas until after our wedding. So part of our honeymoon, Roger and I were helping them move. And we were in her garage, and I saw the basket. I'm like, I want that basket back. And I'm like, okay, that's the rudest thing ever, Kathi. Here's your great friend who hung around for your wedding before she moved. And I was helping her pack up, and I was asking her what she wanted to do with things. And I held up the basket, and she goes, "Didn't you give that to me?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I did." She goes, "You know what? We've never used it. Do you want it back?" And I was like, "Sure, we could use that." I'm like, "Yes." And here's the thing. We regretted nothing. I regretted 1%, and it was amazing how it came back to me. So I think about that all the time. What I give away, I'm never, ever going to regret. And you know what? My life is so much fuller because of the lack of stuff. It's been a miracle. It's been a miracle.
That's so great to hear. I mean, the more and more people I connect with that mindset, it's just it confirms the exact transformation that I went through. And I grew up with very little in my life, so it was
Mhm.
actually going back to basics. I think it's now is a really, really good time to consider, simplifying and decluttering
Right.
and going back to basics and
Well,
connecting.
don't you feel like it gives you more choices?
Oh, so much more.
Yeah, we just sold that house in San Jose. We sold it on the day, like I said, that, the shelter in place went into place. And to move out of there, no, before all of this, it would have taken a moving van, a whole crew. What it took was me, my husband, and our 4 kids. The adult kids came home, helped us move. We gave away most of our stuff in there. And it took it the stress that it takes off of you to not have to manage all that stuff is a miracle.
Yeah, that alone is completely worth it. Not even talking about the extra time and opportunity and creativity and everything else that comes in.
Right.
So,
Yes.
well, Kathi, where can people connect with you, and where they can get the book?
Yeah, my favorite place to connect is on Facebook in Clutter Free Academy. If you just search for Clutter Free Academy in the search bar, you will find us. Just answer a couple of questions so we can make sure you're not a bot, and we will let you in and you can start your decluttering journey with us. And really, the book's available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you love to buy books. And if you have the opportunity to order it from a small independent bookstore, I would love for you to do that, because I want to be able to go into bookstores. I want them to stay in business for when all of this ends. So if we can support those small retailers, I would be thrilled.
Thank you so much. What would you like to leave the Unhustle audience with? One final takeaway.
Oh, when you're holding on to something and you don't know why, ask yourself, is this fear, guilt, or shame? And it answers the question about 95% of the time. And it makes it so easy to give it away.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kathi. Good luck with the Declutter
Thank you.
Free Academy, and good luck with everything, and stay well.
It's a great life to live, right?
It is, absolutely. I'm living it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Oh, it's been great.